Welcome to the Mind Growth Radio Storyteller Series podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Cathan, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is the power of your story and the effect that the stories you tell can have on your life. Patrice Baker is joining us in the Mind Growth Studio to share her wisdom on the subject, as well as some tips from her own personal growth toolbox that you are not going to want to miss. Today's guest is an inspirational speaker, an author, and powerhouse woman life coach for women over 50. Her authentic, relatable, and vulnerable storytelling approach helps women reframe their story with compassion and self-awareness so they can move from surviving to thriving. And we are thrilled to have her here with us today. Please help me welcome Patrice Baker. Welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am so grateful to be here. And yes, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Patrice and I actually connected in a breakout session at a speaker event. And just through that little bit of time that we were together, which is only like 3 minutes you get in these breakout sessions, it was so powerful. And her energy was just so welcoming and wonderful. I knew that she was somebody that I wanted to bring on the show. So I really am so thankful that you said yes and that you're here with us. Before we got started talking about the storyteller power that we have, tell us a little bit about how you got started. What inspired you to take this path?
Well, Stephanie, this started way back when. So I must say, it is in my story that really shares the impetus for me becoming who I am today and choosing this way to share and uplift other women. Early on, my dad died when I was 9. And so prior to that, my family relocated us from Arkansas to San Diego. We came on the train. And through that process, this little girl in me went from a place of comfort to a place of anxiety in that move and didn't realize it. And then after we came to San Diego, 3 short years later, my dad died. And that was my champion. And so in that, I carried forward through most of my life that pain with all the negative stuff, abandoned, low self-esteem, not worth it. Why would he leave me? That kind of thing. And so it impacted, my entire adult life, if you will, and my relationships, of course. I was able to carry forward a different message to my children, thankfully, and that is one of empowerment. And I served as their manager, if you will, because I knew the importance of someone around us who can help guide us. For example, when the load gets too heavy. Example with my daughter, she did very well in school and academia and all that. And, people want to put more on you than you can handle. And so I realized early on that I had to be that person who said, no, if you add one more thing, you must take one thing away. And so that was my way of caregiving. That was my way of allowing her to blossom as the woman that she is today, actually. And the same with my son. And from there, my journey was searching on the inside. What's happening with me? How am I feeling? And what are my feelings, which I really could not identify. I raised 2 children who could identify as their own point. They knew how they felt in a nanosecond. And I'm still struggling after 3 or 4 days. How do I feel about that? And so that's a very debilitating feeling. And from that, I made it my desire, my point, my mission, if you will, my passion to help other women who felt in that space as I did. I knew it was kind of a sacred place for us. Not everyone likes to share it. And but I know also that it's very important.
What you're saying is so powerful and resonates so deeply. For women like you and me, I had my dad didn't die when I was young baby, he was gone. He was just
Mm-hmm.
like absent.
Yes.
And there is that abandonment feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
when you kind of just keep that feeling going and you aren't able really, because you don't understand it, to
Right.
release it, it turns into this feeling of unworthiness, like you're not
Absolutely.
worthy of being loved.
Absolutely. And the first thing is to be able to articulate, to say it in words. And I could feel it all right, but I couldn't get the words out.
So how were you able to shift that for yourself?
I must say my children had a big impact on that. My daughter, who, as I said, did well and continues to thrive in who she is. And so the thing that I could do was foresee how I wanted my children to live. I wanted them to have the freedom of expression. I wanted them to have the space to grow and to thrive, whether I could do it for myself or not. And so my son as well, he had a mental health challenge. And so I had to step in, and take that role so that he would be safe through his journey. And so it was out of my actually doing that for my children that I actually prayed one day. I said,
Mm-hmm.
well, God help me to do what I did for my kids, for myself. And so I understood the disconnect in doing for others and not for self.
So when you started telling a new story for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
your circumstances became different. You felt more
Yes.
empowered.
Yes, and the story empowered me. The I believe that our stories ought to empower us. I believe that's what they're there for. However, what we hold on to are the negatives. We hold on to those bits of pain. We hold on to the agony of not being better in that moment. And we don't even look at it as, like I said, from a 9-year-old's perspective. As I, became an adult, I looked at other 9-year-olds. I said, well, she didn't have anything to do with the circumstances of her life. And so that was one step. The other step is to want something more. Again, we as women, we often put so much in other people. We're raised that way. It's a
Mm.
generational thing. I'm a baby boomer, and I came from parents who were of the veteran era, and that's what it was all about: pouring into other people, helping other people, being there for them, and not complaining, not letting people know that you need help. It was kind of uh, that was the strength that, you know, our foremothers and forefathers put on us as women, thinking that that would be enough. And although it was great, it was not enough.
I recalling some of the stories that I used to tell and a lot of times we do it and we don't even know we're doing it.
Yes,
We just tell the stories like, for example, same shit, different day. Somebody says, "How you
absolutely.
doing?" Same shit,
Absolutely.
different day.
Totally.
Oh, things are still sucky.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Well, I held that mantle, abandoned child,
Right.
insecure, and I rode with it, on the inside. And then one day I started thinking about it and getting more information. And as I got more information, because I've always looked at things from a different perspective, I like to see things outside of where other people see them. I kind of have an ability to do that. And in my own story, I looked at it and realized that, we had two parents that brought their kids to California, two walking, 6 and 5, and then one in the bun. My baby sister my mother was carrying her. And then when we got to San Diego, California, then my parents had a brother for us. And so the journey was about my dad finding work here in California. He was unable to do that in Arkansas. He had been in the military. He had a injury, And so when we came to San Diego, his brother actually encouraged him to bring us. He sought help at the Navy hospital, and he needed to pass a physical. And so that getting that surgery, that help would help him do that. Well, the surgery was successful. However, right after that, he passed. And so that was not the intention of, the intention was to get work to support his family, to take care of his family so that we could prosper and grow and be healthy. And when I shifted that, that empowered me. That story empowered me. The move was made not, it wasn't focused on this little anxiety, little anxious little girl. It was focused on the intention of my parents to take care of their loved ones.
So that's so deep and so powerful, because when you make that shift within yourself, and really you had to decide first, you decided,
Yes,
I'm going to tell a new story.
yes, that is key, and I understand that, and that's where a lot of hesitation is for other women, and I fortunately am able to talk to them in a way that maybe others don't, because I can get right to the point, not right to the nitty gritty. It's
Yes, you
that
have a
important to
very
me.
unique ability to be able to see things that other people cannot see.
Absolutely, and then speak to them. Okay,
Yes,
yes. So
yes.
if you want me to believe you're okay, that's okay for you, but it's not for me because it's not true. And so there is always something that we can work on. Again, giving ourselves compassion. So the compassion piece was new to me. It was not something I had all along. I had to learn to get to even embrace the word because I'm a tough love, hard knock sister, and so 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 I had to learn to embrace the word compassion first of all, and then apply it to myself. Ooh, that was surprising,
So
and
what are some little tips that you could give other women right now who might be struggling with the thought of being compassionate with themselves? We were programmed, right, to
yes,
not be, to put
yes,
ourselves last, to
yes,
give to everybody else first, and
exactly.
then if there's enough left over for us, then
Mhm. Well, I
we
think even when there's something left over, we're not told what to do with it and
right.
be safe. And so it comes from, it is a decision. And it's also the compassion piece says that can you just look at your story and identify a couple of things? Who were you when it happened? How old were you? What were the circumstances around your story? And how much power did you really have over the outcome? And because I believe the quality of the answers you get is based on the quality of your questions.
Hmm.
And asking the right questions then leads you to what we call self awareness. You become aware of something beyond just that story. There were contributing factors, there were things going on at the time, there were people involved, there were feelings of other folks. My parents had certain desires and feelings. And so it wasn't all about me. you know, it's not all about us to carry that load of guilt, shame, whatever it turns into.
Hmm.
However, it's I think this journey is about uncovering our gifts and allowing our story to empower us forward. And when we do that, we can achieve, we can thrive. And thriving means different things to different people. So we can also give ourselves grace in how we thrive. We're not comparing. We're not saying I have to be as someone else is. I don't even have to have the same ambitions as another person. But it's the compassion helps place things in a context that allows us to go from there in a positive way. And what better thing, what's better than that?
Seriously, when you feel good on the inside,
Yes,
the outside feels better too.
absolutely. And it looks better.
Yes, it tastes better, it's
Yeah,
more colorful,
all of that.
people are nicer.
Yes, you're nicer.
Yeah. It
Uh,
makes such a difference, but
it
these are the
does.
invisible
Oops.
things
Sorry.
that we do not um, consider because they're
Exactly.
invisible. So we think they don't have
Exactly.
power.
Right. Right. And that is, I guess my gift is in the notion of the reality that I don't care how good you look on the outside. I know you got stuff on the inside that might be killing you, you know? And I'm
Yeah.
not just talking about the health stuff. So there's the emotional stuff, that is, got us locked into a certain perspective that really dictates how far we can go in life or how we can live our dreams.
Another one of the stories that I am recalling and that I see a lot in clients
Hmm.
is that they are so worried
Mm.
about other people's opinions.
Oh gosh, yes, yes. That's a good one. That's a really good one. It is. It is pervasive.
It
It is
will
all.
get you, right?
Yeah, it's all.
When you start telling the story that their opinions are more important than
Hmm. Hmm.
yours,
Hmm.
or that
And
their feelings matter more than yours.
right, right. And it starts not so much with words. It starts with a subtle look. And this
Hmm.
look, it could be a hard look. You know,
Hmm.
I grew up with those looks, and we didn't have much talking because that wasn't the way of that generation. And so, you got that look, and you didn't know what was quite what it was that you had done wrong, but you knew you had done something wrong, which then leads to shame.
Hmm.
And so then you carry that forward, and you're still confused as to what that all means. But it's coming from a person who has, walked their own life, has their own stories that they're telling themselves. And because we don't know that, we can't understand, what's happening around us. I learned to know about the veterans, that era, and we were in Arkansas as African American Black people, and so it wasn't safe to speak out. And here I was, a young kid in San Diego, speaking out, and so there were things that were done and said to keep us safe,
Hmm.
keep us from harm, and but it looked like it turned into something that was um, debilitating. It turned into, oh, you're not good enough. It turned into, because there were no words attached to it. Words are powerful with action. However, if you just get one side of it, you don't always understand what the message, if you will, or why it's being delivered to you in such a way. You don't understand that means, I want you to be safe. I love you so much. I want you to get through this life healthy. And, a lot of times that we don't have time for feelings. Nobody ever asked me how I felt about anything growing up. Because,
Right?
yeah,
It was all about this is how I feel. This is how my
yes,
face looks right now. And
yes.
if you see it looking another way, you
Hmm.
better watch out.
Right. And the word feeling wasn't even used.
Right.
This is the way it is. This is the way it is. And so that kind of nurtured my little rebel in me that said, not gonna tell me what to do. So
Well, the world is so thankful that that
yeah,
happened for that little rebel in you that came
yes,
forward and you made the decision to shine your light in the world. Thank you
yes,
for
yes.
that.
Oh, you're very
Um,
welcome.
can you share some tips about how somebody might begin to identify what is going on with them or identify the aspects of their story, whether it's guilt or shame or those stories that are not serving at all, but
Yes,
sometimes we don't know where they are coming from. Even we don't even
absolutely,
know anything of how to communicate with it.
absolutely. And because our story ends up turning to pain, all we see is the pain. So if someone asks us to look back at that story, who wants to do that? Because that's where the pain is. However, you have to. Part of going through, moving through, becoming that unstoppable spirit that we all have inside of us is to move and shift through what's going on with you. In order to do that, you have to know where you've been. You have to know what your story is about. And that means you're going to have to face it. You're going to have to, be in a safe environment with someone maybe you feel safe with as well. And look at your story from a curiosity standpoint. Okay, that's a story, and it unfolded in certain ways. And then if you're curious about it, then it's not as harmful, or you can feel maybe safer. That's the key, to feel safe in exploring your story, because
Yeah.
story's a trigger. So that means you are in a safe place. You are with someone who you feel safe with, and you are able to look at your story in a safe environment.
And when you do tap into that curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
the weight of your past doesn't feel so heavy.
Correct. And when you have someone along with you, they can help interpret things, because that's the other piece of it. How do we interpret that? So if I'm looking at my story by myself, and I'm, I'm the one who believes it, who has cultivated, if you will, into what it is today, I may not be able to see the things that I need to. I may not be able to interpret them in a way that I can heal from. And that's key. We were not meant to do things, to be isolated and do things by ourselves. Like I told my kids, with my daughter and her brilliance, I knew that she needed somebody to manage her time, because others unknowingly would take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was, you see a bright, shiny star, can you do this? Can you do that?
Right.
My son's situation, he was vulnerable. And I knew that the folks in charge, the mental health folks, the doctors, the attorneys, the facility, all them folks were beyond anything that, they didn't know his story, or they didn't know him. I had to be the interpreter between those two and let them know, we're going to help this child no matter what. And, that he's brilliant. He has his genius as my daughter. So that interpreter is just critical to us being able to embrace our story, to hear it from a different perspective.
Right.
And then you might get then see the story. To facilitate the story is one thing, but the individual is the one who has the goods, who gets the aha, who
Mm-hmm.
has something attached and say, oh, that is truth. So it's a team effort, but the individual, the woman, the person, is the one who uncovers their own genius. I'll put it like that.
So what I'm gathering is that part of your gifts is you're able to extract the pieces of the story.
Yes.
And reframe it.
Yes.
Into something that is now going to serve you, instead of carrying the weight of all of that heavy energy, such as guilt and shame and all
Absolutely.
of that stuff.
Absolutely.
And when you
we can,
release that is
yes,
where you move forward.
And we can throw perfection in there. That's a whole different story. So
we can do a whole show on that.
And my belief, my gift in being here in this in this space at this time, is to really help people see that for themselves. So it comes down to, who do you have around you? What people what environment have you created for yourself? And if it's safe enough for you to share who you are and to work through that. And that takes a while, because, we love the people we love. And, we hesitate in making changes in our people environment or our other environment as well, our home environment. We get someplace and we get settled in, and okay, I'm comfortable. And if you feel that way, you're not able to see where it is that things can gosh, I mean, I just put it this way: who would not want to thrive? You know,
Exactly.
thriving is what it's about, but it doesn't mean a level of money, a level of status. It means whatever it means to you. Thriving can be, you know, having all the books that you love to read around you and being able to read them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It means something different for everyone.
it is.
And I love that you help other women be able to do this. I remember when I hired my very first coach, it was back
Mm-hmm.
in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not feel comfortable telling any of my friends because
Right.
nobody in my circle was investing in themselves in that way.
Exactly.
Nobody in my circle that I had at that time,
Mm-hmm.
um, which my circle has changed now. And that will happen as you start
Yes.
to evolve and as you start to shift, especially when you have somebody to help you. It was the
Yes.
most empowering decision I ever made.
Yes. Yes. And
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 I highly encourage, if you've never worked with a coach before, it's
mhm.
okay, but things go a lot easier when you have somebody there who is holding that
Yes.
space for you
Yes. Yes.
and helping you along. You just get there faster and and more in a more easier fashion.
Well, in a way where you can use the tools that you've been given, and the tools are directed toward your own story, your own life. You
Right.
see, because yes, we do sometimes feel better talking to someone, a stranger who doesn't know us,
Hmm.
than our own people, because where they've been in their own journey. And when we start to do that, yes, we do begin to shift in what we accept and how we want to live. And I think the best way to describe that is that each of us have an opportunity to live our fullest life. We have to take that step. So it's not working against the forces that
Mm.
are around you. It's working for something better. And when those around you see what you're doing, they might say, "Oh my goodness, I might want to do that. What are you doing that's different?"
Yeah, what's she having? I'll have what she's
Exactly.
having.
I'll have that drink. Yeah.
So, what is one piece of advice that you
Mm-hmm.
could give to the woman listening right now who might be like, wow, my stories maybe have not been serving me? Is there more to this life than what I thought? Is there
Mm-hmm.
more than the just the shame and guilt and unworthiness that I've been feeling?
Mm-hmm. I would say own your story. Now, the word own can mean different things because it could be like if you own a piece of property or it's yours. What I mean by that is embrace it. Embrace it. Make friends with it. Know that it's not there to harm. It wasn't meant to bring you harm, but it was meant to, once you can understand and get the best out of it, get those little nuggets of life that were passed on to you. See, my dad, had he known that I would have felt that way after he passed, would probably have been very upset with me because
Mm.
that was never his intention. But I took it and misconstrued it. And I lived a long life with that story. That doesn't honor what my dad was really about, because I don't know his story. So the compassion comes in. The embracing is that you have one, and those before you have stories, and those before you have stories. And have they passed down? Maybe they passed down some nuggets of resilience. Can you see what has been passed down to you that is helping you, look at your life from a standpoint of treasures, if you will, rather than,
Mm.
and that that starts right there. It starts with the embracing. It starts with the query. I want to know. I'm curious, and it starts with wanting to know what people before you, what impacted them before my story evolved.
I love it. Patrice, where can people go to learn more about you?
Ah, I'm on LinkedIn, and I think it's somewhere on. I don't have it right off my lips.
It's okay.
On my
I'll put a link. I'll put a link
Okay,
in the description of the
okay,
video so you can find
okay.
Patrice on LinkedIn.
And my website is patricebaker.com.
Fabulous.
And
And that's PatriceBaker.
yes.
And I highly recommend that if this is your first time meeting Patrice or getting to know her, that you go tune into her, that you surround yourself with her energy, you tune into her nuggets of wisdom, and empower yourself with a new story. Patrice, thank you so much for joining us
You're
today. It
welcome.
was
You're welcome.
lovely to have you here.
Oh, same here, Stephanie. I appreciate you and thank you so much for having me.
Listeners, thank you for tuning in with us for another episode of the Mind Grow Radio Storyteller Series. I am your host, Stephanie Cathan. We have been joined by the absolutely fabulous Patrice Baker, and we will see you next time here in the Mind Grow studio. And until then, keep shining in your brilliance. Bye-bye, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.